How a dismissive avoidant tests you, and why most partners fail without even realizing it. Most people believe dismissive avoidants don't care enough to test their partners, but the truth is far more complex and far more subtle. A dismissive avoidant is constantly assessing one thing beneath the surface. Is closeness going to cost me my autonomy, my safety, or my emotional control? They don't test with dramatic ultimatums or obvious games. They test quietly, indirectly, and psychologically. And that's why most partners fail. Not because they aren't loving enough, but because they respond emotionally instead of strategically. From the very beginning, the avoidant is watching how you react to distance, silence, emotional ambiguity, and unmet needs. They are not looking for reassurance in the way an anxious person is. They are looking for proof that intimacy won't trap them. If you misunderstand this, you will unknowingly fail almost every test they put in front of you. One of the earliest tests a dismissive avoidant uses is the distance test, and it often happens right when the connection starts to feel good. Things are flowing, communication is easy, intimacy is building, and then suddenly, without explanation, they pull back. Messages slow down. Plans become vague. Emotional warmth cools. This is not accidental. This is the avoidant checking whether closeness automatically turns into pressure. Most partners fail this test by chasing. They ask, "Did I do something wrong?" They send long emotional messages. They try to restore closeness by increasing effort. To the avoidant nervous system, this confirms their deepest fear. If I let someone close, they will need too much from me. The test was never about whether you care. It was about whether you can stay grounded when connection fluctuates. Passing this test means not collapsing into anxiety or protest behavior, but maintaining your emotional center while allowing space without resentment. Another powerful test is the emotional exposure test, and this one is especially confusing because it looks like vulnerability. A dismissive avoidant may briefly open up about a childhood wound, a past relationship, or a moment of insecurity. For a short time, they appear emotionally available. Most partners respond by leaning in hard, asking follow-up questions, expressing deep empathy, and attempting to create a bonding moment. But to the avoidant, this can feel like emotional engulfment. The test here is not, will you care, but will you respect my emotional limits? Many partners fail by turning a small opening into an emotional deep dive. The avoidant then retreats, not because they were fake, but because the vulnerability exceeded their window of tolerance. Passing this test means receiving what they share without trying to expand it, fix it, or emotionally anchor them to it. Dismissive avoidants also run the needs test, which is where most well-meaning partners completely sabotage themselves. At some point, you will express a need, more communication, more affection, more clarity, or more consistency. The avoidant watches carefully how you frame this. If your need comes with emotional urgency, pressure, or fear of abandonment, it registers as a threat. Many partners fail by over-explaining their pain, justifying why their needs are reasonable, or subtly demanding reassurance. To the avoidant, this feels like being cornered into emotional responsibility they don't know how to handle. Passing this test doesn't mean suppressing your needs. It means stating them calmly, briefly, and without attachment to outcome. Ironically, the more emotionally self-contained you are, the safer your needs feel to an avoidant nervous system. There is also the conflict test, which reveals why dismissive avoidants often choose emotionally resilient partners, but end up pushing them away anyway. When tension arises, avoidants unconsciously escalate distance, stonewalling, minimizing, or emotionally shutting down. Most partners fail by trying to resolve the conflict immediately. They push for conversations, clarity, and emotional processing. This confirms the avoidance belief that conflict equals emotional overwhelm. The test is not about who is right. It's about whether conflict leads to emotional chaos or emotional regulation. Partners who pass this test don't abandon themselves, but they also don't chase resolution. They allow space, regulate their own emotions, and return to the issue without intensity. This creates safety, but most partners never get there because their own attachment wounds get activated first. A particularly cruel test is the indifference test, where the avoidant acts emotionally neutral or detached to see if you will overfunction to regain connection. They may respond with short replies, reduced enthusiasm, or emotional flatness. Most partners fail by becoming louder emotionally, more expressive, more affectionate, more giving. This again reinforces the avoidance belief that closeness equals loss of control. Passing this test means not trying to perform for connection. When you remain emotionally steady and don't compensate for their withdrawal, the avoidant experiences something unfamiliar but calming: connection without pressure. Dismissive avoidants also test boundaries, often unconsciously. They may cancel plans last minute, avoid defining the relationship, or resist routine. If you tolerate repeated boundary violations without self-respect, they lose respect. If you react with anger or ultimatums, they feel controlled. Most partners fail because they swing between over-accommodation and emotional explosions. Passing this test means calmly enforcing boundaries without emotional punishment. You don't chase, threaten, or dramatize. You simply adjust your availability and standards. This communicates strength, not abandonment anxiety. One of the deepest tests is the self-sufficiency test. Dismissive avoidants are hyper-attuned to whether you need them to feel okay. If your emotional state depends on their consistency, attention, or reassurance, it triggers their avoidance. Many partners fail by unconsciously making the avoidant their emotional anchor. Passing this test means having a full emotional life outside the relationship: goals, friendships, self-soothing skills, and identity. The paradox is that avoidants are most drawn to partners who don't need them, but choose them. So why do most partners fail these tests? Because they respond from their own attachment wounds instead of emotional regulation. Anxious partners chase. Secure but unaware partners try to fix. Empaths overgive. All of these responses unintentionally confirm the avoidance fear that intimacy leads to emotional burden. The avoidant isn't testing you because they enjoy control. They are testing because their nervous system doesn't know how to feel safe in closeness. Unfortunately, the tests are rarely communicated, rarely conscious, and rarely fair. Here's the hard truth most people don't want to hear. Even if you pass these tests, a dismissive avoidant may still not choose deep intimacy. Passing the test doesn't guarantee commitment. It only removes the avoidant's justification for distance. Real change requires their willingness to confront their own attachment patterns. Many partners exhaust themselves trying to win emotional safety for someone who has never learned how to receive it. The real power shift happens when you stop trying to pass the tests and start living from emotional self-respect. When you stop reacting and start responding. When you stop proving your worth and start embodying it. Ironically, this is when dismissive avoidants feel the strongest pull, because the relationship no longer threatens their autonomy. But by that point, many partners have grown beyond the need to be chosen. Understanding these tests isn't about manipulating avoidance. It's about protecting yourself from losing your emotional center. When you recognize the pattern, you stop internalizing the withdrawal, the silence, and the ambiguity. You realize it was never about your value. It was about their fear of closeness colliding with your capacity for it. And once you see that clearly, you stop failing tests that were never yours to pass in the first place.